So the other day, a couple of days ago, our provincial language minister, Jean-François Roberge, met with our next guest, federal languages minister, Ginette Petitpas-TAYLor. And got to tell you, a bit surprised, but then again, it was planned. He being Jean-François Roberge, praised Bill C-13. That is the federal government's proposed update to the Official Languages Act. Now, if you've been here this afternoon, we've talked about this. We also talked to Anthony Housefather because this bill, C-13, references Quebec's Bill 101 and by extension, Bill 96 in the document. Now, it's not yet the law, but it seems only a matter of time until it does become that. Ginette Petitpas-TAYLor is on the line. First of all, thank you for taking the time this afternoon. It's appreciated.
Thanks, Aaron. Thanks, Natasha. I'm happy to be here.
Let's start with the fact that when I say the minister, our provincial minister, praised this bill, you can imagine some Anglophones here, because this has been an issue since the get-go when Bill 96 was introduced, are not really happy with this at all. So what is the answer, or at least what's the comment with respect to Bill C-13 and the sensitivity that it does have with respect to Anglos here?
Well, I think first and foremost, as a federal minister, I certainly work collaboratively with all of my provincial and territorial colleagues across the country. I know that folks in Quebec were perhaps surprised when I went to the chamber in Montreal to do an event that we were both invited to. But I think we have to be very clear. Bill C-13 is not 96, is not the Charter of the French language. In moving forward as a government, we've worked very hard over the past year and a half in putting in place legislation that in no way is going to take away any rights from Anglophones in Quebec. And I guess I really, really want to be clear by that. I guess over the past little while, I really feel that both 96 and 13 have been conflated. And I think we have to recognize that these are two different pieces of legislation. One is law and one is still before the House of Commons. But again, in no way is 13 taking away any rights to the Anglophones in Quebec. But again, I'm very sensitive that people are concerned. But I want I guess I want to set the record straight that 13 is not there to take away any rights away from our Anglophone community.
I understand that as a boilerplate sort of comment, but the fact of the matter is, as we were told earlier this afternoon by Anthony Housefather, who was part of the committee discussing amendments to this bill, that in fact it references that. So, and the issue then becomes, well, we know, living here in Quebec, that in fact there are restrictions for English people, for Anglos here, in that particular bill. So why reference that in a federal bill if one has nothing to do with the other?
Well, I think we have to be really clear. When we're talking about the preamble, making a reference to the preamble does not endorse the bill in question. Just like the province of New Brunswick, I live in a minority community, a minority linguistic community in New Brunswick, in Moncton, New Brunswick. And we make reference to the specificity of New Brunswick, that it's a bilingual province and the laws that are in place there. In no way, in making reference in the preamble, are we endorsing the bill in question. It's simply making the statement that at this time is the law in Quebec.
Okay, so somehow this makes me think then it's boiling down to a question of perception. Like when we hear that Anthony Housefather, let's start first by you saying that you're sensitive to the needs of Anglo-Quebecers, and yet Anthony Housefather is saying my constituents, my citizens are very concerned about this. They don't want Bill C-13.
And I guess with respect to that, I certainly recognize the unique political perspectives in Quebec with respect to the Anglophones. I recognize, and they've shared with me, that they are a minority within a minority. English-speaking Quebecers have made it clear to me as well that they recognize that the English language is in no way threatened in Quebec. No, they've indicated that to me. The objective of Bill C-13, however, is simply to give special attention to the French language, because we certainly recognize that French is the only official language in this country that is in decline, and the census last year has proved that. But all at the same time, while protecting our official language minority communities, and that includes the Anglophone communities in Quebec. During the course of the preparation of our action plan that we launched a few weeks ago, I had the privilege of having 22 consultations across the country, and 2 in Quebec, actually, 1 in Montreal and 1 in Sherbrooke. And the Anglophone community in Quebec shared with me their thoughts and what they needed. And 3 things that came out loud and clear during those consultations. Number 1, the Anglophone community indicated to me that they needed help with respect to employment services, French as second language. And the third item that they mentioned to me as well was that they needed support. They needed support to support the vitality of their community. And in our action plan that we launched 2 weeks ago, we've been able to meet those needs because, again, I am very sensitive to the unique challenges of Quebec, and we want to be an ally, and the legislation that we are bringing forward in no way is going to take away any of their rights.
So I appreciate the fact that you met with these people. We talked about that story the day of, and there's some money being set aside, I guess, for a variety of different Anglo cultural events. But we also heard from the Quebec Community Groups Network, a fairly large group representing Anglophone rights here as well, that they were not happy with that particular action by the federal government because it's pretty light on details. In fact, there are very few details there as to where this money is going to go and how it's going to be spent. So where are those details?
Well, actually, with respect to the action plan, we've announced a historic amount of funding, $4.1 billion. We've almost doubled our budget when it comes to official languages. If we go back to 2015 to where we are at now, we've almost doubled the amount of funding. And again, I have listened and heard the communities loud and clear in the Anglophone community. And the monies that we have targeted in our action plan, they very much meet what they told us during those sessions. And aside from that, aside from those three priority areas, we also heard from many frontline groups that provide services on the ground. And they indicated to us very clearly that they're having a hard time making ends meet because of the inflation costs and the cost of doing business. And they were asking us to maybe provide them with additional funding for those frontline service providers. And in our action plan, the last action plan, 2018 to 2023, we provided them with a 20% increase. And for the next 5 years, we will be providing them with up to 25% additional increase. So again, we've listened to them loud and clear. The other thing as well that we heard from the community as well is the issue of the Court Challenges program, that we needed more funds there. And through the investments that we're making in the official language action plan, we've doubled the amount for the Court Challenges program. And that was something that came from our official language minority communities in Quebec and outside of Quebec.
Yeah, isn't it ironic that there's money for court challenges, yet there's references in this bill to a law that's being challenged, which I find incredibly ironic. And by the way, to your point about this appearing only once in the preamble, my understanding is it's once in the preamble. It's in 3 places in that bill. So 2 other places, not just the preamble in C-13. Is that accurate?
It is accurate, but again, it's not. We are not in no way endorsing the bill in question. At one point in the legislation, we are indicating that our federally regulated enterprises will have the choice of either signing up for the Charter of the French language or our legislation. So we certainly had to say what that law was. You just can't say the law. So we had to be specific with respect to what that law is.
Okay, we're going to run out of time, but I kind of want to circle back again to perception, because there certainly is a perception in the Anglophone community that the federal government is pandering to the Legault government just to kind of placate them. And then there's also additionally sort of the perception that throwing money at this problem is a means by which to placate Anglophones as well. So I think I'd like you to respond to that. Again, is this just perception or is that the reality?
I guess for your listeners that are out there, I think, again, both 96 and 13 have really been conflated. And we have to keep in mind that these are two different pieces of legislation altogether. One is not the same as the other. We are making additional investments, and I don't think that it's throwing money. I think that the communities have told us loud and clear that they need additional support in order to protect and to promote the vitality of their communities, having that sense of belonging. Just this week, I met with a youth group in Montreal, Youth for Youth, and they explained to me, what they really wanted to see. They want to have that sense of belonging to their community, both the French and the Anglophone community. That is the type of support that they were looking for, and that's exactly what we've provided with respect to our action plan, and also, again, with respect to C-13. There's a lot of misinformation out there as well, and I can appreciate there's fear out there as well with respect to, other legislation that is presently, valid in Quebec. But I guess my message to Anglophones is C-13 is not there to remove any rights at all from Anglophones in Quebec. To the opposite, there's some measures with respect to Part 7 of the legislation that we have. It is there to really make sure that there's more positive measures that are in place, and that the federal government is going to have to analyze every decision that it makes. What are the consequences on our official language minority communities? And that also includes the Anglophone community in Quebec.
Okay.
Thank you, Minister.
Minister Petitpas-Taylor, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
GINETTE Petitpas-TAYLOR, she is the Federal Minister of Official Languages. And no, that Bill C-13 is not yet law. But as we said at the top, it's getting closer and closer to becoming that. The only person to vote against this in the Liberal caucus, Anthony Housefather. Only one MP. There was one abstention, but he was the only one to vote no.